Well, good evening, everyone. We will go ahead and get started. And before we do, got a card here to read that Mom just gave me. It says, "Thank you so much." It said, "Asking God to bless you in return for your thoughtfulness you've shown." It says, "Thank you so much for your love and support during the loss of Dad's brother, Roger Mullins." It says, "Love, Glenn and Bernita." So, thank you for the love and the support from the church, and both. I'd lost two brothers in about a 6-week span, I think it was. So, thank you all for your support in that. But who else has a prayer request or a praise item they want to share tonight? Let's be sure to remember that one. Any others?
Remember, Joe Mullins' baby Sam, that's he had an infection in his neck, so he couldn't get the ER. So I don't know what that means, but he just had an infection in his neck.
Be sure to remember that. That's Dad's other brother that passed away in December. The day we did the funeral, or the day his dad passed away, he and his wife had a new baby, and it's in the hospital, has an infection they found in its neck. So be sure to remember them, remember that family. Any others? Let's be sure to remember that. Let's be sure to remember that family. Any others? Absolutely. We should remember that one. Any others? Not all those with unspoken requests. There'll be no one raising hand. Invite all will want to come and spread out here at the altar and pray, and ask Brother Carmel if he will come lead us. Well, good evening again. It's good to be in the house of the Lord. Move that down a little bit. It's hot. But it is good to be back in the house of the Lord. And do desire your prayers tonight as we stand. Tonight we're going to talk, and I titled it Church 101. I guess for me and my college's classes, I could have called it Church 090. Those were some of the remedial classes. I just took those because I wanted to be with those type of kids. No, in math, I was highly qualified to be in 090 math. And I have to tell her every time I see her, if it wasn't from Jennifer Wilson, I'd still be in college trying to get out of math. There's another one. But just some basic stuff, and it's been on my heart, and I'm one that, you know, I'll hear a message, whether it's from one of the other ministers or ones that I listen to a lot on internet or whatever it might be, and kind of just when things start, you know, getting in my heart and head, I chew on them for quite a bit, and I process them a little bit differently sometimes. But when Brother TJ was talking about Gather there 3 or 4 weeks ago and the importance of it, you know, and I think about it, it is important that we are in church. I believe that if anything is essential, church is. Church is. But then I think about it from an outsider standpoint, and sometimes for even those of us within the doors of the church, why is it essential? Why is it essential? And so often it's because we're trained from, you know, Sunday school, the old Sunday schools and stuff like that. And I remember it well of having the boards, and, you know, every Sunday you're there, you get the gold star. And you get so many gold stars, then you would get an award in front of the church. You know, you get your little badge and how many weeks you've made it and not missed, or years you've made it and stuff. And those are great because it's encouraging, you know, people to be in church. But I think a lot of times as we get older, we still keep that main mindset. And, okay, I got a star today because I went. Or I got a star today because I read God's word, or I did a devotion. And all those things are great. But why are they great? Why are they needful? And so those are some of the things I want to talk about tonight. So if you have your Bibles, we're going to start off here in Hebrews, and we're going to be back and forth. And again, I process things in different ways, so you'll have to forgive me for that. But going to look at this a little bit tonight from a sports analogy as well. Okay, and you just pick whatever sport it is because it would all apply. I'll use football because it applies to that probably the most. All right, but anyway, so Hebrews 10 and 24 says, "Let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching." Okay, and so once we break that down, the very beginning, let us who? We the church. Okay, let us as the church consider one another. Okay, a lot of times we worry about the ones that's not here, but this is saying, what about the ones that are here? What are we doing for those that are here? Okay, consider one another to provoke. Okay, another word for provoke, and most of the times if you go back and you look in the scriptures and do that provoke as a word search, most of it's going to go back to talking about parents. Don't provoke your children to wrath. Don't provoke this. And even if you look in the dictionary, the word provoke, it would mean, it usually has a negative effect. Okay, if you provoke someone to anger, or you provoke someone to rebel, you provoke someone to riot or whatever. But here it's talking about to encourage, okay? To provoke. If you provoke someone to, you know, make your favorite meal, you'd be like, you know, I have really been craving some really good spaghetti and meatballs. I just love spaghetti and meatballs. I haven't had that in a long time. And lo and behold, you show up and they've made spaghetti and meatballs. You provoke them to do that, okay? But we as a church are to provoke one another unto love. We're encouraging one another in love. That's the job of us as believers. That's the job as the church, that we are encouraging one another in love, okay? Or unto love. And good works. So if we was looking at it from a team aspect, I don't know that we necessarily need to don the skirts and stuff like that, but we got the pom-poms, and when we show up and say, man, Brother Andrew, the fact that you call and check on me just out of the blue last Thursday, I don't know if he could tell in my voice or what it was, but last Thursday I did my devotion, struggled through it. Next morning I got a text from Brother Andrew, said, thanks for sharing. I really enjoyed that. And I thought, wow. Because, sometimes we get in the process of just going through the motions. Whew, got that one done. I'm done for another week, or whatever else, especially when you're dealing with internet and technology and it's just another opportunity to talk to the camera, But then for him to say that provoked me to be like, okay, and then Brother TJ had mentioned or sent a text out to a bunch of us that somebody, I don't even know who it was, said, I greatly enjoy listening to your all's devotions. You all must, had never been here before, but somehow or another got in kindly with doing our devotions and keeping up with it as well, And so had sent out a message to somebody and said, I enjoy these so much. Thank you also. You guys feed off of each other well, and, different personalities coming through and this, that, and the other. And that encourages. And that's what this verse is talking about, to provoke unto love and to good works, And I try to make a habit of it when Sarah and Brett, at one Sunday morning said, man, great job this morning, guys. Great job this morning. And I kid with them because part of that, because it was a great job, and other part of it is because I know what it's like when they're not here. And then I'm like, anybody can play something, or whatever. But I do. I want to encourage them in that because it is good, and it's when the body is fitting together, we need to encourage that because when one part suffers, we all suffer with it. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together. All right, as the manner is some. And if you go on and read in verses 32 and 33 there, it kind of gives some of the things. And he talks about in times past and the persecutions in which you had gone through. Okay? And some of the commentaries will say that that's probably one of the reasons why they were forsaking the assembly. Because they had the fear of being persecuted for showing up. Okay? But regardless of whatever the manner of some. And today, honestly, we can say pandemics, we can say this, that, other, but it's busyness. It's busyness. That's been for the last 10 years. That we just get so busy that the assembling of ourselves together is not, I don't want to say as important, but I think a lot of it is because of the internet, the convenience, that you can't. And I'm not harping on that. I have encouraged those guys that's able to put that stuff out there, and then a lot of people that shut in and can't come and all that stuff there. That's wonderful for it. But it's talking about assembling together. All right. And so when we look at that from a team aspect, I want to think about it like this. All right, we done talked about provoking of love and good work to assemble. And I don't know how many of you all remember putting these together, and some might still do it. But used to, that was going to Ben Franklin out here beside a Payless. And usually we would go to try to buy a wiffle ball because we had lost ours. And so, the game was over with. We had taped it as much as we could, and we needed a wiffle ball. But you had or Magic Mart, and you had that whole aisle. And it was nothing but model cars. And you go through there and you'd see the box and it'd be these, muscle cars and these old cars and stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, so I'm going to get me one of those and you're going to put it together and it's going to look just like that. Mine never looked just like that. Usually I had a couple parts glued to my finger and I was in there trying to scrape them off, and then you would buy the advanced ones in which you would have to paint as well. And then I would see other people's cars that they put together, and I was like, wow.
Now, they really assembled that thing. You know, mine don't open the doors because they was probably glued shut. Don't raise the hood because the motor was not even in there, you know. But assemble, and that's what we think about it. Think about it from a church's standpoint. You know, if you put all these pieces together, but the tires wasn't there, the whole model's going to, you know, and we talk about assembling a puzzle together. And you can't wait to see, you know, exactly, it's going to look just like on the box. But there's a couple pieces that's missing. You know, it affects the whole picture. Well, it's the same thing in church. You know, when we assemble, but pieces that are supposed to be here that are not here, it affects the whole picture. All right? But when we assemble means together, but it's also to fit together. All right? That we, and we've heard testimony after testimony of Mount Olive Church, and the reason I started coming here was because of the love that I felt when I came in. I felt so welcomed, you know. And that's good. That's part of our job. That goes back to the part of provoking and with love and good work. That we want people to come and to assemble with us. But think about this as far as huddle up. And if you've never played sports, that's okay. All right? But there's the value of a huddle. And another word for to assemble means huddle it up. Bring it in. Bring it in. And that's kind of what we do throughout week. We have our Monday through Saturday life, just boom, 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 get knocked down, get up. You know, just stuff that goes on all the time. And it is so important. You know, and you think about it in the contest, in a football game or whatever else, and you got all this stuff that happens and just people getting knocked down and running over here and gets knocked out of bounds, the pass gets knocked down or whatever it is, a bunch of stuff happens. And then you take that time and you huddle back up. And in that huddle, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. All right? A lot of stuff goes on. No, not only are you calling the next play, all right, but also in that time, you're checking on your teammates. Who's hurt? A lot of times they get back into that huddle and you notice like, oh, wait, you need to go out. You know, something's wrong. Something's not right. We need to get some attention to you. You know, other things that happen in the huddle. All right, you get a chance to catch your breath. Catch your breath because guess what? You're getting back out in the game. So that's another reason why it is so important for the assembly of ourselves together. You know, same thing in other sports. Basketball. Most teams will, if there's a foul or something like that, and the team will get together right quick. Say, all right, on the made basket, we're back, we're pressing. We're doing this, we're doing that. Well, guess what if you weren't in that huddle? You don't know the play. You're over here playing in the zone, and you're supposed to be man-to-man. Whatever. And again, we're not teaching this on the sports aspect of it, but assembling in church is no different. When we huddle up, we come here and get some breath. Man, sometimes I got to be here to catch my breath. Sometimes it is great to just come in and sit and listen to other people teach, other people preach, other people sing. Because I just need to catch my breath. I'm out of breath because guess what? The game's knocked me down. Life's knocked me down. It doesn't matter. None of us are going to be in such good shape that nothing affects us. Life is going to get to all of us. All of us are going to get the air knocked out of us. All of us are going to end up face down from time to time. And we need those teammates to come and pick us up. And we might be limping, but help us get back into that huddle. Call the next play, and let's go. And that's life. And that's the importance of church, and that's the importance of us gathering together. That we come in and we say, hey, listen, guys, life is hard. And we all are not real good at life a lot of times. But hey, guess what? God's grace is still sufficient. God's still good. God's still on the throne. Let's get back out there in the game and let's keep going. So that's the importance of it. It's not so we can get a star up here and say, hey, I didn't miss a church service in such and such time. Sitting in the pew, that's no different. And I've had kids. I had a kid, and I won't mention his name because probably most of you all know him and are friends with him. But I coached JV basketball at the Christian school, and he played for me. And we was playing down at Rye Cove. And there was about 8 seconds left in the game, and we were down 1. So I designed a play for him. We was going to bring him around. We was going to set a double screen, swing the ball around, get him on the post. He was going to make it because that was his favorite shot. Let's go win this game. Ready, break. Got out there on the floor. I had 4 players. The one I drew it up for was sitting on the bench. And I said, why are you not in the game? He said, oh, am I in? I was like, I just drew a play up for you to win this game for us. I was like, fine, just sit there. Some other kid jacked up a half-court shot and we lost. But, you know, you can be in a huddle and not know what's going on. You can be in church but not be getting the game plan. So it is very important that we come and we come to be filled up. That we're not just going through the motions. Because when we go through the motions of life, you know, that's just it. It's got to be a real deal. It's got to be a real deal. We got to come to church and we got to empty ourselves out and allow God to pour himself into us. Okay? Anybody have anything? All right, continuing on here. All right, Proverbs, if you want to go there. Most of the scriptures will be up here, but Proverbs 13:20. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. And again, you know, you think of that as, okay, that's some good advice. But it goes down to this. You'll become what you're around. Whatever you're taking in is eventually going to come out. You know, another reason why it is so important for us to be assembled together. Okay? That we're pouring into each other's lives. Because guess what? Regardless of whether you're in church or whether you're not in church, somebody is pouring into your life. The devil makes sure of that. He's going to send things, people, whatever to influence, and that pours into your mind. Even if it's not even you being around people. It could be you tuned into a TV all the time. Tuned into a computer all the time. Whatever it is, that stuff is coming in. All right? And if it's not wise counsel, you become a fool. All right? If you're hanging out with fools, you're going to become a fool. That's biblical. That's not my take on it. Okay? And I know. I've hung out with fools before and got to the point to where, how did I get here, Lord? Why am I thinking this way, Lord? Why am I talking this way, Lord? Because it's what we allow to come in is eventually going to come out. Mike Brooks, when I was in school, he used to talk about that all the time. We'd do something as 8th and 9th graders in school. He'd always make that, boys, garbage in, garbage out. Oh, that's no big deal. So I'm just telling you, garbage in, garbage out. If it comes in, eventually it's going to come out. If you look at it, it'll eventually affect the way you think. If you say it, it'll eventually, you know, hurt your testimony around somebody else or whatever else. Okay? And so again, we're going to look at this as far as, well, let's go ahead and do these other two because they're all three go together. Where no counsel is, the people fall. You know, who is counseling you? Who is pouring into your life? Who do you allow to pour into your life? Because guess what? Again, everybody, and that's something I have to remind myself of all the time. And me and Brother Andrew, we know. We a lot of times will compare students. Have you ever had this one? Yes. Did there times you have to check their pulse to make sure they was alive in your class? Yes. You know, and you just be like, hey, come on. Let's wake up here. We're here today. Let's do something. But in that process there, you know, we are teachers, but more importantly, we are counselors. Because guess what? We're pouring into those kids' lives every day. And sometimes might be the only person that has showed any interest in them at all. At all. And you're surrounded by people like that every day. It might be a coworker, and they're very good at going through the motions. But they need some encouragement in their life. They're down. They've been knocked down. And they're walking at a crawl. We don't know that. Okay? But where there's no counsel, people fall. Because guess what? It goes back to what we talk about all the time about the devil. Seeking who he can destroy. Nobody is above him or beyond his grasp. He's trying to get a hold of everyone. Okay? So it is very important that we are allowing positive things, positive people, God's word, God's instruction to be poured into our life. That should be the counsel that we are receiving. If you're waiting for the nightly news to pick up your morale, good luck. If you want the newspaper to just offer you a little hope to get you through the day, good luck. And honestly, if you want most people in the world to be what's going to pick you up, good luck. Because most people's going through struggles of their own, and they're doing good to make it through the day themselves without picking you up as you go. You have to seek out those kinds of people. You've got to seek out those people who's going to be an encouragement to you. And when we can't find it, we can always find it in God's Word. And when we can't find it, it just proves more and more that we need to be that person. We need to be the one who's doing the encouraging. We need to be the one who's picking up people who's struggling. And it's easy to say, well, Lord, I've got struggles of my own. I just can't encourage people no more. I said that recently myself. But guess what? If God's pouring into us, we can do anything. We can do anything. Because on our own strength, we can't. On His strength, we can. For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war. And we're all in a war. Spiritual warfare, whatever. But and every day you need to make sure you have a battle plan. Make sure you have a battle plan. Who you huddling up with? And Brother Carmel talks about their small group that they started, just a couple of them now. There's 4 or 5 of them, and they Zoom meet 3 or 4 times a week now, don't you? And meet and they just pour into each other's lives. And I thought, man, that is awesome. That is great. And it started when we couldn't really do nothing, but it's continued on, and that's what he says. It's to the point now to where you really look forward to. I think it's on 8 o'clock at night or something like that. And they Zoom meet, a couple guys from the church, and they pour into each other's life. They huddle up. And they encourage each other. They share with each other. And that's so important. So what are you huddling up with? And honestly, sometimes I'll huddle up with the TV and watch, Forged in Fire. Interesting show, but it don't do a lot for my morale. Okay? Or watch those people jump into the swamp and tackle an alligator. I feel a little better about myself and my vocabulary when I watch those people, but it don't build you up and build up your morale. Who do you huddle up with? Who is it that's pouring into your life? Who are you allowing to pour in your life? Because it will have major, major results, good or bad. Okay? It says, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Goes back to what we said before. If you walk with the wise, you will grow wise. And I'll share something with you here that I found in studying. This is Laszlo Pogar. Anybody know who that is? Me neither. All right. But this is a Hungarian guy. He is a chess coach and I couldn't even pronounce it. He's some kind of a brain dude. All right. I don't know if he's a psychologist or whatever, one of them. But anyway, and him and his wife wanted to do a study. And so they thought that you're not just born a prodigy. They didn't believe that. They believed that that is something that you can train up. So they decided that when she was with child, that they really wanted their children to be world-class grandmaster chess players. So they filled their house full of books about playing chess. They had posters of people playing chess all over the walls. They had 3 kids. The youngest, at the time, the firstborn, by the time she was 5 or 6 years old, would beat most adults in chess. She became a world champion at the age of 14. Their middle child was a grandmaster, which is as high as you can get as a chess player, by the time she was like 17. The youngest was the best, and at the age 4 would beat any adult she would sit in front of and play. And was a grandmaster and ranked #1 chess player in the world for like 8 consecutive years. They poured into it. And here's what they said. Laszlo and his wife, Kiera, knew that those closest to us have an enormous amount of power to influence who we become. And so just by what they was pouring into those kids, that was the result that they got. World-class chess players. All right? And so we look at it on the other side, and we think about if we're swimming in the sewer, we're going to come out smelling like the sewer. And another analogy that I remember youth leader teaching a long time ago and talking about, well, it's not all bad. And he said, well, if there was a crisp, really good-looking strawberry floating around in the sewer, would you jump in and swim to get that strawberry? Well, no, that would be nasty. Well, that's what a lot of times we'll do. We'll wade through the muck and the mire to get something that looks appealing, okay? So it's a continuous walk with the wise. If we're going to walk, it's not we'll walk with the wise occasionally, but a continual walk. All right? It's an intentional walk. I'll be honest with you. Yes, I'll come and I'll teach or lead a song or stuff like that a lot of times at church. But I also seek out your all's wisdom. I seek out your all's encouragement. I seek out your all's love. Because without those things, it's hard for me to do what I feel God's called me to do. Without a little encouragement, without a little bit of love. But then I think about it on my part too. I got to make sure that I'm encouraging you all. That I'm showing love to you all. All right? And so who are you walking with? Who's your friends? Make sure it's frequent and that you're moving forward. When you walk, have you ever just got beside somebody, put your arm around them, and y'all started just doing this? Going backwards? No. Forward, where we've got a clear vision, where we can see where we're heading. When we walk with the wise, that's what we're doing. Okay? We're walking together. All right? Where do you go for counsel? As I said before, we're all in war. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's go to Colossians 2, and we're going to close on this right here in just a second. But Colossians Chapter 2, and we're going to read the first 9 verses. Okay? And, of course, this is Paul in his instructions to the church here. But let's go ahead and read these 9 verses. So if somebody wants to get us started here and read the first 2. Okay, so here Paul's kind of taking everything that I've talked about up to this point in time. And that's what he's saying his heart is. Okay? For whether you've seen me in flesh or you just heard about me or whatever else, this is the cry of my heart. That you all were knit together in what? Knit together in love. All right? And you go back to the thing that a lot of times they're used in marriages about, 2 cords and then you braid, but 3 together is going to be hard to tear apart. And that's what he's talking about from the church standpoint, that you all will be knitted together in love. Okay? All right, so let's go 3 and 4. Okay, so he's saying, listen, it is very important because, again, he's talking about walk with the wise. What kind of counsel? Who are you allowing to pour into your life? All right? Because he's talking about now, well, Brother Lee read about someone coming to you with enticing words. They ain't nobody going to say, listen, you just need to give up on the church and just need to do this here. And you be like, I never thought of that. Let's go. I quit. But it's going to be like, it's not that important. It's not that important. You read a little bit, don't you? Well, yeah. See, you're getting fed. That's all that's really important. And guess what? It's just the old carrot trick, or the old dollar bill trick. We did that once at Camp Jacob and ended up having to mock the lodge about 1 o'clock in the morning, put a snake on a fishing line and ran it out in the woods. So when Paul Sams came by, we was going to, because he's always talking about wanting to kill snakes. And so we thought, we'll get him kill this one here. And we kept, he'd seen it come across through there and went to get it, and we kept jerking it in front of him. But that's the way the devil does us. he puts those little enticing things out there that seem innocent at the time, and then we keep going, we keep going, and we keep going. And next thing you know, we wake up and we're out in the wilderness and be like, how did I get here? And that's what Brother Lee was just reading with these enticing things. Whatever it is that you entice. Because when you walk with fools, fools are pretty good at getting people to become fools with them. All right? But when we walk with the wise, it takes a dedication. That takes a commitment, an intentional walking with the wise. Paying close attention to our daily actions. All right? Let's go verse 5. All right, 6? Or 6 and 7? Okay, so again, some of the things we talked about. Walking with the Lord. All right? Walking with the Lord. And again, you don't get saved and take that step with the Lord and that's it. When you get saved, you walk with the Lord. That means every day. And you know, the old song, and he walks with me and talks with me. That's a two-way street. That we're walking with the Lord, which means we're going where he leads us. You can't just take one step and say, I'm saved. See you, Lord. You know, I'll be here if you need me. But we're walking in the ways of the Lord. Rooted and built up in him. We're established in the faith. And that's what we do, you know. We're not here as far as the Hall of Fame of saints that have never made a mistake and never fallen and done stupid stuff. We're here because we share the stupid stuff we've done to encourage one another that God's got grace and he forgives us. And that we can become established in our faith. That God is good. He is a God of love. He's a God of justice. He's a God of mercy. All right? As ye have been taught. And you know, and we go back into that sports thing. And we was talking about it today out in the hallway, and we was talking about listening to ball games. And Brother Andrew was talking about watching the football game the other night, and there was no sound for a while. He said, that just drove me crazy. And another guy said, well, that's how I watch most college football games because I don't want to hear them. I said, if Troy Aikman's calling a game, I'm not listening to him. Okay, I cheered for him crazy when he was winning Super Bowls, but you put him in the booth and now he becomes a smart aleck, and I don't like listening to him. He knows everything. And Tony Romo can see everything and knows every play. But when he played for Dallas, he was going to throw it to the other team regardless. He didn't know any better. But that's what we're talking about right here, that you've been taught. There's some who's walked a long time in this life. All right? That's my nice way of saying some old people, okay? But old in the faith. Old in the faith. They've been there. They've done that. They've walked through some dark times. You know, those are the people I want counsel from. If Brother Lee tells me something, I take it to heart. Because he's walked in those shoes. He's walked and he's done things. Okay? And others as well. And that's what it's talking about right here. And that's what I'm talking about with these old football players that's now in the booth and call the game. That's some of the role of elders. You're calling the game. You may not be actively doing as much as you once did, but you're still in that booth. You're still kind of helping and letting people know, hey, listen, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're teaching through experiences. You know, here's what the Word of God says. And you go back and you tell them an experience or something that you've been through. Because a lot of times we all still get stuck in the Sunday school mode and we think of Daniel and the lion's den and stuff. Those are really great stories and wow, that's great. But when you hear someone else who was in a dark time and they was kind of in their own dungeon and God delivered them out of it, wow. Now it puts it in, it's realistic. And so that we teach. In verse 8 it says, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the traditions of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. That's the goal of the devil. You can call the world, you can blame it on the world. We live in an evil world, whatever you want to do. You can blame it on politics, you can blame it on anything you want. It all goes back to one person, the devil. If you're mad at what's going on in the world, you got to be mad at the devil because he's the one that created it all. He's the one that sin enticed Adam and Eve with sin, and he's been doing that ever since then. Ever since then. Through philosophies, his own philosophy. Did God really say that? Do you actually believe that? And if he can get you to start questioning or look away, he can lead you astray. He can lead you astray. For in him dwelleth all the fullness. All right? After the traditions of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. For in him, Christ, dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily. You know what that tells me? Everything you need is found in God. Every supply is met in God. And so guess what we do as a church? We're huddling up. We're huddling up. We're picking up the wounded. We're encouraging those that are tired. And we're saying, listen, guys, if God gives us all another day tomorrow, he's going to be right there in the middle of that day. Seek out wise counsel. Walk with the wise. But if you're walking with the fools, you're going to end up one. And we've all been there. And it's easy. And none of us set off and say, well, I think I'm going to go do stupid stuff for a while. We just start doing stupid stuff. Why? Because we went from doing little innocent stuff to other things. Why? Traditions of men, vain deceit, and philosophies. There's a battle for the mind. And it is so important that we come to church so that we all can stay on the same game plan. Same game plan. I remember watching a team play, and they destroyed us about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Knocked us. We didn't make the playoffs, went and watched them play in the playoffs. And that one kid that absolutely destroyed us, I don't know what it was and what happened since then. And if any of y'all at this game, you probably know who I'm talking about. They're not here, but they're in Southwest Virginia. That kid never even went in the huddle. They were playing Appomattox. He never even went in the huddle. He just stayed on the sideline. You know, because everybody on the stands and always around was yelling at. He never went in the huddle. I don't think he caught a ball or scored a touchdown that game. And he looked like all pro against us. Because guess what? He was in the huddle and he was with that team. But somehow or another, they became a disconnect in there to where he was going to do his own thing. And that team wasn't good enough to be on the field with him. And he failed miserably. But so often we do that as well. We think, well, I don't need church. I can get fed in by other things. Be very careful with who you huddle. And that is one of the downsides of not being able to be physically in the body and huddling up with people. Because unless you're willfully and able to reach out to members of the body, you're not able to pour in and out of each other. And so it is very important. It is very important that we are walking with the wise. All right? 1 Corinthians 15 and 33 says, be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Awake to righteousness and not sin. For some have not the knowledge of God. I speak this to your shame. Again, don't be deceived. There's not a time limit on that. We can all be deceived when we're allowing evil things into our life. All right? And we finish here. 2 Corinthians 6:14. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communication have light with darkness? And again, we use J. Vernon McGee a lot. And in his study of that, when they was talking about being unequally yoked, the example they used was the ox and the ass. One was considered a clean, one was considered unclean. And they said it would make no sense that you would put the two of them together. But when you yoke things together, all right, you become a team. And, you know, and my Papa Jack loved a good set of mules. My dad would go and buy me ponies. And for somehow or another, my Papa had the ability to, within a week or two, to turn that pony into a donkey. Because he would take it back to the market and trade it in for a good mule. And I didn't want a good mule. I just wanted a pony that I could ride. But I always ended up with a mule. And I remember Skeeter bought a mule one time. And right where we live now, he thought it would be a great idea for me and him to hook that thing up. Because he said, they told me it would pull. Let's see if it will. So you had two greenhorns out there, and we hooked that thing up to a telephone pole. And he said, go ahead and see what it'll do. Luckily for me, that mule did pull, okay? And it did its thing. But I have seen them get hooked into those things, harnessed with two, and one knows what's going on and one don't, and that's a bad crash. That's a bad crash because you get some massive beast that's not willing to work together. And that's what it's talking about, but with us being unequally yoked. Every day in life, you're allowing somebody to get in there with you. And they're either going to be pulling against you or pulling with you. And they're either focused on the same things you're focused on, or they're going to want to lead you in another direction. And regardless, you may pull hard against them and eventually get to where you need to go, but you're not going to get there the way you would if you was yoked up with somebody with the same focus you are. So it is very important. It is very important that we are staying yoked with each other, that we are yoked with good teammates. Okay? And if you have a good teammate, family members, loved ones, wife, children, kids, whatever it is, be very thankful for that. That people who are encouraging you. But now some people, the only time they get it is when they walk through the doors here. Let's make sure we're adamant about that. That we're encouraging people on in love. Encouraging people on in good works. Because the world needs lots of love, and the church still got a lot of work to do. All right? Anybody got anything? Hope you got something out of it. That's kind of like my rants and stuff. But that's kind of like the way I choose and chew on things and stuff. And so church is important. Church is important, especially when church is done right. And it's not just, hey, I got a check mark on the board. Look at me. Because it's kind of like going to the gym and sitting there and watching everybody work out. You know. It's pretty good, and I go in the weight room all the time and talk to the ones that's in there working out down in the school. You know, I'll see Brother Andrew and them are just sweating away. All right, guys, I'm going back upstairs. See you all. Enjoyed the conversation. You know, but we're guilty of doing that at church too. We just come and sit here, but we don't allow nothing to happen. All right, be conscious about that, because if we walk with the fools, we'll become a fool. We'll become a fool. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I honestly think that a lot of times in school is that you get that kid in your class and, they're going to pull against everything you're doing, but I think God sometimes puts you there to kind of give a little direction to those people and help them. And, and we don't necessarily want to go out and yoke up with those people, but sometimes God puts people in our lives that, like Dad's saying, are that unruly, and we got to lead on, and we got to continue plowing and stay forward and focus on what God's called us to do, even when people's pulling maybe in opposite direction. But don't willfully go and try to find people that's going in opposite direction, because sometimes they put you over in the sickle and it don't end well. All right, let's all stand if all hearts and minds are clear, and I'm going to ask Brother Andrew.